So, man, did you you want to start off the news summary, or should I?
Oh, I just thought it was interesting. Did you see a marijuana moment? President Carter talking about the infamous story about his son smoking weed with Willie Nelson in the White House?
I did. It was in the news this week. And so what was some of the information regarding the Willie Nelson story? What's the gist?
I just find it as confirmation. I mean, that story's been going on for years, right? No one has ever had actual substantial support of, like, yeah, it happened, you know? I even think Willie Nelson was always on the slide, like, I smoked weed in the White House, but not with who?
Well, it was described as a fat Austin torpedo. That's how Willie Nelson described the joint that he smoked with Jimmy Carter's son, a fat Austin torpedo.
I want one.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, like, who wouldn't? The one that I liked that I saw going around was out of the Hill, actually, and it shows how widestream it is. 1 in 20 older Americans regularly smoke marijuana. Now, 1 in 20, that's only like 5%. What do they consider to be older Americans? Older than aged 55. So 5%, right? That's 1 in 20.
Fuck, I'm so close to that age.
Well, you're already overrepresentative of yourself. Good work on that.
Right. Hey, I got another positive story poll. Here's one from Mississippi. 81% of Mississippians.
Ooh, because I think Mississippi is a ballot state. Lauren, please confirm with us if Mississippi's a ballot state, and maybe we'll find an activist because today we have a good one about Nebraska. And so we're going to be learning up all about Nebraska's interesting oneness policy. And what's that mean? Well, yeah, stick around because we'll talk all about how medical marijuana is probably going to play out in Nebraska. But then the other thing that I saw that I thought was just like Geechee. It's not really it's not even really news. So in celebrity opinion news, Seth Rogen's advice on ending coronavirus is to smoke weed and watch movies. I can't do a Seth Rogen impersonation. That was like literally the first half-assed one I've ever tried, and I apologize for it. I'm going to have to go tweet apologies about a terrible half-assed Seth Rogen impersonation.
I just got to say, I'm already ahead of the game.
Oh, yeah? Because you've been smoking weed and watching movies?
That's all I do, man. Or play video games.
Well, you also had the coronavirus in January, remember? You had it before it was cool.
Yeah. Oh, God, please.
Before the shop.
And if it wasn't, I don't want the coronavirus because that was bad when I had whatever the fuck it was.
Oh, wow. Somebody that I know finally has tested for it. I'm like, oh, wow, I actually know somebody who has it now. Because that's what I do. I just hang out and work and try to avoid the coronavirus these days. It's been a hell of a year, man.
Hell yeah. Well, you kind of been avoiding it for the past 2 years, haven't you?
The coronavirus? No, it's only been since like March.
I meant we were working from home.
Working from home. Well, I've been working I was like biphasic. I had more than one office. And so I'd be in Chicago 50% of the time before Chicago got basically shut down, or like all the events are like Zoom conferences now. So it was very surreal back in like March, where the world turned into this podcast.
That's pretty good.
Well, because like we've been doing it for like a year by then. And so like, it was kind of normal for us. And then suddenly everywhere.
We were cool before it was.
Hey, did you have some other news, dude?
Huh?
Did you have some other news?
Oh, I just got some funny shit here. Did you see the one with the elephant getting CBD?
Oh yeah, we talked about the elephant getting CBD last round. And so like, what's the status update on them getting CBD? Anything?
I think he's not as sad.
How can you tell if he's not as sad?
I don't know. I mean, I imagine there's mannerisms and whatnot from what they're doing, but
yeah.
And did you see that police raid in Oakland, though? I mean, on the
no, I didn't. What happened to the police raid in Oakland before we get to like the biggest news of the week?
Yeah, so there was an Oakland Church, marijuana and mushrooms.
All right, so it's an Oakland church, and they seize marijuana and mushrooms. Once again, RFRA does not apply to drugs. The the RFRA stands for the Restore Your Freedoms of First Amendment and Religion Act or something. RFRA has never applied to cannabis, and so that's why you always see those cannabis churches get shut down like that. And then, of course, they were going with mushrooms, too. But I bet that was one hell of a service, dude.
It's just crazy, though. It always bothers me how the government can just set this line of what is religion, what's not, right? You can believe in your own magical sky god, or you can believe in a plant.
I mean, but we have, like, American religions, too. But, like, as soon as that American religion tries to adopt weed and mushrooms, it's suddenly not protected. I mean, like, the spaceships... That's okay, bro. You could believe in that. Zephulax or whatever the fuck, the Zeons and Nuons. There's some weird freaking religions that America has made,
Yeah, for real, though. And then we got other stuff, right? Something.
Well, no, like the biggest news, and like it's kind of duplicative almost now because of our show over the weekend with the Drug Policy Alliance when we did the update on the MORE Act, and so we kind of covered this already. But then a couple hours ago, here we are on September 2nd. So they are going to vote. GOP congressman says he's going to vote yes on marijuana legalization despite reparations concerns. And so the MORE Act hopefully is going to be actually up for a vote on the House of Representatives Chamber of Commerce Congress in September, hopefully September 21st that week. So join us, the likes and the subscribes, and then join us, to watch live as we talk about did your congressman vote yes for the MORE Act. That'll be
that
pretty.
Matt Getz? Who said that?
Who's that? Oh.
Was that Matt Getz who said that? That guy's kind of a douche.
It was Tom McClintock, he says, but then, Oh, no, you're going up. Now I see a Getz name. Where's this Matt Getz from?
The podcast. Oh, he's Florida.
Oh, hot takes with Matt Getz. Hey, let's see if we can get Matt Getz on the program and see if he has a hot take on what he thinks the MORE Act has to offer and why he's going to support it. Maybe he could drop us a little something.
I would hope so, just for the whole reparations thing too. Though I hate when these conservative people, whatever, refer to reparations as a negative. Like, the marijuana reparations is going to come out of taxes anyways.
That's one of the reasons why I think reparations is rebranding itself as social equity, because to understand it in concepts of equity as opposed to in concepts of reparations, which implies that you're getting something for free, or it implies that what you're doing is beyond the bounds of reasonableness, as opposed to equity, where it's like, no, like you built this wealth right on our backs, and then you systematically kept us out of all these programs for decades. And you're still hurting us with the drug war. And if we try to restructure that to undo all the harms through the regulatory harms that were literally on them, like it was fucking legal to have slaves.
Yeah.
And because of that, and then not only that, just the systematic racism in the United States. I mean, I'm not saying that we're perfect, obviously, but that I think is where the point of, I mean, if you call them reparations, that's one thing. But if you see it as like a thing in equity, where they have not been made whole and they have not been given the same opportunities as people like me have.
Yeah. Well, we got to remember that, separate drinking fountains were just within our parents' lives.
That's right.
It just wasn't like 100 years ago.
Yeah. They just celebrated the Martin Luther King something. And it wasn't only like 50, 60 years ago. That's it.
Yeah, and people are surprised that we have these discrepancies, these disparities.
It's prejudice, man. And then though it's not all good news in cannabis. I mean, it's not all like, oh my gosh, the MORE Act's going to be in Congress and it might actually pass. There was the news out of the great state of Nebraska. The ballot initiative in medical marijuana is being challenged in court. Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner filed a challenge to the petition for the ballot initiative that got well over the 122,000 signatures it needed, because they're asking if it poses two separate questions in violation of the single question requirement that constitutional, or I think it would be a constitutional amendment in Nebraska requires.
Oh, I got lots of hate and anger for the Navy.
Why do you have hate in it? Oh, is this because where did the Navy touch you, Miggy? Because I remember that you were a seaman.
Well, right? they touched me for 10 years all over. It was horrible. And I loved it at the same time. But, the Navy's doubled down on the hemp shampoo and lotions for sailors, which is ridiculous. But I just want to give a little breakdown. There's so much going on right now. 3 years prior to when zero tolerance happened is when the Paraguay incident happened. You remember that with the
defoliant?
When in Mexico?
Is that like the defoliant paraquat?
Yeah. Where they were gonna try and stop Mexico's drug trade, and instead they ended up poisoning Americans, through bad cannabis. Well, 3 years after that, there was an accident. May 26, 1981, on board the USS Nimitz. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because when the Paraguay incident and up until this aircraft incident on the Nimitz, High Times was sold on bases.
Really?
Right? Yeah, yeah. High Times was sold. I was on the USS Constitution on the last days before it went away, and there were still no smoking signs in the berthing. Like at the time when I was in, you couldn't smoke anything in the berthing, but a lot of the old heads, they're like, yeah, we pull into Australia, we pull into wherever, we come back with lots of weed and drugs, but zero tolerance didn't happen until after this incident on a carrier where a jet crashed into an EA-6B crashed into a bunch of jets on the flight deck. 14 were killed, 48 injured. Out of that 14 killed, 6 of them had marijuana in the system. And so that's kind of how marijuana became this demonized, just no in the Navy, zero tolerance. The accident itself was not marijuana related, but because 6 of these guys that died, they're like, oh, we got a reason. And
we can finally enforce our phony baloney laws, gentlemen. Yes. That's great. But did you see this out of Iowa? I actually got a phone call from Iowa the other day too about somebody who's trying to get into the medical marijuana biz over there. And I'm like, Iowa? I thought that was worse than Wisconsin, but evidently Iowa officials are trying to seek an exemption from the DEA so that I guess Iowa can enforce its own rules at its state as opposed to having the DEA enforce them because they don't want to lose federal funding for a lot of their long-term care facilities, as evidently medical marijuana is coming to Iowa. Have you heard about that?
No, dude, I had no clue, but
yeah, let's reach out to Carl Olson because I remember Carl Olson as long as I've known you. So this guy's been, as I describe him, a long-time cannabis advocate in the state. And so maybe we can reach out to Carl Olson or Iowans for medical marijuana and see where they're coming. Iowa legislation 2020. Hey, what a deal. And so they have the hemp bill that passed in both, smokable hemp ban, of course. Why should you have too much fun? But I didn't think that Iowa has a medical cannabis program. We should really look into that,
No, or a chance. I didn't even see that coming.
No. And so I still don't understand. But, we'll get to the bottom of Iowa and we'll do a show about it,
Well, I think in most states that we've underestimated, like Alabama, Iowa, we underestimate them because they have a history of that. But, when Trump became president, that's the year that legalization, there was a lot of votes for marijuana. Both candidates, marijuana got more votes than both candidates together.
Yeah.
So if we had a president marijuana, that'd be great. But I just think in the nation in a whole, we're past that stigma for the most part. It still exists.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure, though, if there was a president marijuana, half the people would still hate him and be like, he's not the right kind of marijuana.
I'm more of a sativa person.
Yeah, those indicas are going to ruin this country, man. They're worse than the commies that they come from.
They don't work.
So, were you showing us stuff about, because this is one of the bigger providers of the conferences, the cannabis conference? Is that the one that you were talking about, that virtual thing? Is that kind of the thing that it's taking place of 3 weeks, September 15th, 22nd, and 29th? Or what type of virtual cannabis conference were you on to? I was trying to find their pricing, but it's
well, for the sponsors,
$200.
Oh, okay.
To go, not to sponsor.
Oh, no.
Right.
It was $500 for the Fairchild event. And that's what I was in. I was in a Fairchild event that was being coded for by Emerge.
Oh, I see. So I wonder how they're going to do theirs then.
Well, in that event, I'll make it later on after we're done. I'll make a video just because it's really a huge space. I was really impressed by the interactiveness of it, and I really wish I could run though. I was telling him it was so frustrating, dude, to be a little sim and just fucking run, just
go. Just want to go to that one.
That one over there. Yeah. Or even like laser beams coming on my eyeballs. Something. It's virtual, but it's still really cool.
Why can't you be a cat? It's a virtual thing. How come I got to be a human?
I want to be a furry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured you'd say. But what about Mississippi? It's heading for a potentially close November vote on medical cannabis legalization. And I heard that Canna Advisors and Vincente Cederberg are going to be doing a fundraiser to try to try to get some money for this ballot initiative, 2 ballot questions in Mississippi. And so first, should medical marijuana be legalized? And if so, which initiative? So there's 2 initiatives that are out there, and we're going to have to reach out to somebody in Mississippi to do our Mississippi show like we did for, we did one on Nebraska. We did one on South Dakota.
You just passed it, dude. 81% though. That's remember last week I posted that?
81% of Mississippians in favor of doctors being able to recommend medical marijuana for serious medical condition, with 52% in favor of citizen initiative. And so I'm trying to find the citizen initiatives that both of them have and see if there's any types of actual, legislative text, but I don't see any legislative text. I see the initiative, the license opportunities. Let's see, health to just start adopting final rules by July of next year, and then start issuing marijuana licenses by August of next year. Let's see, dispensaries could sell no more than 2.5 medical conditions. Only 20 medical conditions would apply. Treatment centers have to be 500 feet away from churches, schools, and child care centers, because if you're at church, school, or a child care center, it is a reality-free zone. So like in Illinois, it's just a complete cluster. And that cluster has not gotten any better. I mean, now you start, people are finally starting to get scores, like almost 2 weeks after they were released. And so, and the scores are making no sense.
So not even real scores, just those 2 numbers?
That's correct. There's like, your work hasn't been graded. Your work has been graded, but you can't see how it was graded. And
yeah,
so
what's up with that?
Just saying. That's just how it is. And so and it doesn't make any sense. And then in some areas, like the same application might be graded in different. So like you get a rubric. And so you might get a 15 on one BLS region and like a 7 on another BLS region. It's bananas.
Oh, dude. So once
for the same exhibit.
Yeah. When are because
there's lawsuits already, man.
But you guys just also raked in another record month.
Oh, what did Illinois report for?
I'm not sure. I just know it was one of the podcasts I was listening to where someone said Illinois brings in another astounding month. I mean, come on.
If it's a record, it has to be over 60 million then. So
yeah,
more than that.
Yeah.
All right. Did you get any like cool Teen Vogue?
Yeah. Shout out to Teen Vogue, dude. I mean, shout out to like no longer brainwashing little girls and thinking like top 10 things you have to do to please somebody, right?
Oh yeah. Well, there are those types of articles. But what is Teen Vogue reporting? So,
they're just continuing on with Kamala Harris and how her and Joe Biden will decriminalize marijuana. So, I mean, it's fingers crossed. That's all you can do, right? I mean, how long will we be doing this?
We've been doing this for over 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, for each thing that pops up. I mean, it sounds more. I mean, she was part of the MORE Act. So... I really do believe, but every time something happens, just like with Carter, you remember we were so close with Carter's administration.
That's true, but then they didn't know, like in Carter's administration, like there was no anandamide, there was no endocannabinoid system, there was no CBD, there was no data. They still had only been doing the research for like a few decades, as opposed to another 5 decades. But then here's the number out of Illinois for last month. It was $63 million. Of adult use cannabis sales. So that's what Illinois was reporting. But then another cool thing we've done over at the Cannabis Industry Lawyers site to help organize our content. Today we have content about buying and selling of the cannabis licenses, which is going to be really interesting. So give us some likes and subscribes, and then stick around toward the guest, because we're going to talk all about how you can buy and sell licenses. But here is and we'll drop this into the description as well, is our map. And so it's kind of an interactive thing, and then we'll organize the content by state, and then we'll sub-organize it even further. So if you have any questions about your state, head on over to the map of marijuana legality by state on cannabisindustrylawyer.com, and then tell us what's missing.
That's pretty dope. I like that format. Hey, also in messed up, well, not also, but in messed up weed news, Boston Freedom Rally and Seattle Hempfest are criticizing a competing event. So apparently 2 ousted members of the Boston community who are Trump supporters. That's why. But not just, again, you can be a Trump supporter, but not one of those people screaming all lives matters. Not one of those conspiracy QAnon peoples. And that's what we get in the cannabis community, most part.
What percentage of people do you think are QAnons?
Oh my God. You mean in the cannabis community or in America?
Yeah, I guess we probably have to talk about America in that respect.
Yeah, but they kind of go hand in hand, because if you can have a conspiracy, if it's something is slightly true, that kind of person is already predetermined to accept things, don't you think?
I think there's actual psychological studies over that, in the sense that people believe what they already believe. This is something we should try to reach out to that guy who wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. Let's see if we can get Daniel Kahneman on the show to discuss psychology of QAnon. But until that day, this time next week, you know what we're going to be doing and reporting on?
What's up, cannabis?
Yeah, but what respect? What's next week? It's a seminal date.
The MORE Act.
The MORE Act should be up for a vote this time next week in the House of Representatives. So give us some likes and subscribes and then ask us in the bottom, like, where are you guys? So have you called your legislature yet? Have you asked? Because I know Darren LaHood represents me, which is not true at all. It's just true in the sense that he's my congressman. And so I should ask him to vote for the MORE Act. I'll call him later, but I don't think he's going to.
Really? Oh, is a Republican conservative type person?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
that's who we have to focus on. The normal, what we talked about last time about legislators and knowing the key, like who to ping and why,
Right on.
Marijuana is not a detrimental topic to be supportive of. People need to stop.
Well, it used to be, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, like ourselves included, used fake names up until a few years ago. And then some people that are in illegal states still use fake names.
Yeah, that's
simply
true.
To try to protect the anonymity of it, and then the cash kind of disappears into anything really easily. I'm still really excited to see do you think they're actually going to hold that vote next week?
You know what? Fingers crossed. That's it. I mean,
you know what we need to do? We need to update the people about what happened in Nebraska.
Oh my God.
Yeah, tell the people what happened in Nebraska, dude.
So Nebraska did not make it again. Let's scroll down here. Nebraska's marijuana supporters to try again. They got denied in the legislation, right?
Remember, we had the guy on just a couple weeks ago when we were talking about that lawsuit, and I'm like, why did you guys have it say 1 and 2 when the rule is you're only allowed to have one question on the ballot?
Yeah, and that's where they got him, right? Yeah. This cheesy ass sheriff. And honestly, do you really think it's the sheriff or maybe somebody that's a lawyer that's smarter than the sheriff? Because I don't think they would come up with it. Well, I guess they know how to manipulate their own system.
Well, I just don't understand why they drafted their question with numbers 1 and 2. They should have drafted their question with, do you support medical or cannabis? Something like that, where it's like, should Nebraskans be allowed medical cannabis? See how I didn't have a second part of that question? Yeah.
Maybe it's just because they're trying too hard to try and protect the medical, and that maybe, I don't know. I don't know why
were they just trying to pump fake themselves?
Yeah.
Let's shoot ourselves in the foot before we get out of the gate.
Well, it's kind of just like the Carter administration, where legalization almost happened, but because of a cocaine scandal, it didn't, right? So these guys were almost there, but shot themselves in the foot with the second question.
I know, but then I don't think we're going to get a cocaine scandal out of cannabis anymore.
Right. Speaking of, though, what was it, South Dakota, though? Their IG just had a DUI. So,
of course,
we have this big contradiction in America. Like, it's okay to get a DUI if you're an official, if you're a grown up, but God forbid.
Because it's fine to have an irresponsible use of alcohol, but it's terrible to have any use of cannabis. Get out of here. Anyway, more federal news. Congressional lawmakers asked the Supreme Court to hear a marijuana lawsuit against the DEA. So 7 members of Congress, it's that cannabis cohort in Congress, which is kind of fun. We should try to see if we can get the cannabis cohort in Congress on. And so they're asking for this lawsuit to move forward. And these types of lawsuits, like Normal has been sponsoring these lawsuits. And that's kind of that book that I wrote about 10 years ago, similar style of it. They've just been going on for 50 years. They've just never been successful. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, well, do you think, I think it's like our distrust of the system, right? Like, how do they pick and choose what goes further? There's always a stalemate. Hey, you have justice. You filed the report. But now when we hear it, it's going to be up to us.
Right. Well, that's kind of what's going on with Illinois. Like everybody was just told what their scores were, and you were either in the pot or you weren't out of the pot. And then like no review. You're in, or that's it.
Yeah.
And so like you don't have that opportunity to be heard and that opportunity to have like, all right, well, is my score fair? So where's the judicial review of my score? It's kind of built into the law, but they're just trying to ram it into effect. And so like they can go to the lottery and they can assign those licenses because they're already behind schedule,
Yeah, but where's the transparency? Like you guys are demanding. I mean, how hard is it to have transparency? And
extremely difficult, evidently.
Well, and I think it's because the whole cannabis conversation is always pissed on. It's always considered something,
shout out to the medical marijuana community on Facebook. They're having a town hall here after the show on their channels. I think it's called the Medical Cannabis Community on Facebook. Fairly large Facebook group. We've had them on the show before, so check that out because they're going to be discussing with a couple of state legislature what the status is. And then in status update news, that case that is pending and working its way through the federal court. There was supposed to be some stuff on that, but that's kind of been continued until September 22nd. So there's going to be another hearing in that case in a week. So tune into next week's on that, man.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah. I also wanted to share one more thing that I happened to catch. I shared it in our the big group, but apparently, it is football season, and football has a branded wine. I caught that on my Twitter feed.
Has a brand of wine.
What the? I mean, come on, man. Where's our cannabis brand? Where's our?
That is irresponsible, sir. That is irresponsible to suggest that people should enjoy using something besides alcohol. Did you not think of the shareholders?
But football's come a long way, but they can do so much more.
Yeah, it used to be about the concussions and the physical abuse. Now it's all about the children.
Well, their whole pomp and circumstance with social equity bullshit right now. If they're going to support social justice, social equity, legalization, prohibition's number one.
But it's still like a super hot industry, man. There's still so much action that's going on. Record sales again, and each month that goes by, it's growing and it's growing fast. And you know what that leads to?
Business,
transactions, buying and sellings of licenses. The thing that happened in Illinois was the strangest. Like they totally punted and they said, "Hey, we are not going to hold that lottery, and there's going to be a rescoring."
You mean they actually are trying to make it right?
That's great, right? They're trying to make it right. So, like, for example, if your security plan was defective and you didn't get a 10-day notice, we're going to actually give you that notice and say, "Hey, here's what's missing." And so it appears to be like the real cool best thing to do. And then that lawsuit that had like over 70 plaintiffs, that's been dismissed. And so now they're just going to participate in this this do-over process and this rescoring. If you guys need any help on your rescoring, you can email me right there at tom@collateralbase.com. Some of you have. And for everybody who sticks around to the end, that's when I'll tell you how to make sure that you get your state of Illinois residency points if you were deprived of those. It was a little tricky and it was very confusing. And so I could see how a lot of people, even though they may have lived in Illinois their whole life, didn't get them. Or if they recently moved to Illinois, they didn't get them, but they maybe got them for social equity, which makes no sense.
Who's grading them?
The grader is KPMG.
Okay. Any transparency on that at all? Anything going on?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not transparency.
Of course not.
There was zero transparency. That was one of the problems. They just said, "Here's our winners. Here's our winners."
Yeah. No, that's that. Until you get the transparency, you're going to have issues. Period.
That's true. That's true. And so the transparency is coming to light, which is great. And then, so what else happened in cannabis news? One of the things because I got a beef, and then you can.
Well, I got something to add to your beef, dude. So like this isn't like stuff you won't catch in the news, but like stuff I see on the internet here. In the subreddit of hemp, this guy's asking. He said, "Testing hot, need help." And I hate to be callous, and I want to be like, "You're SOL." I hate to say that.
He's not SOL. That's the thing. There's a whole industry of hemp remediation that's out there and trying to make compliance with the law. The problem is that, there really isn't a lot of guidance from the feds as to this. There's just the very broad definition. And so there was actually a lawsuit filed by the National Hemp Industry Association, or I'd have to check, and then another South Carolinian hemp provider of nutraceutical type supplements. Because the problem with hemp is that it's completely legal, but there's a whole bunch of gray in it. Because the thing that they did was they just said the plant, unless it has more than 0.3% Delta-9 THC, which high quality flower, like you get some, if you take care of some train wreck. Oh, and speaking of train wreck, we get to talk to Ed Rosenthal on Sunday, dude.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one. Oh my God.
Let's talk all about the strains that he helped develop and how long he's been growing weed. What's the over under on that? I'm saying at least 50 years.
Oh man, I don't know. I just know being a young, High Times guy, and he was one of the first ones. Him and Jorge Fontes. People were putting their self out there and trying to explain how to grow better through High Times. I thought that was, it was when it was culture. It was more culture then too.
It was also way more illegal back then. Almost as legal as hemp once you throw it into the extractor. Because once you've harvested your hemp, let's say it's just that 10-10 hemp, so it's 10% CBD at 10% moisture. So pretty dry weight, nothing fancy about that. That's not going to be your flower shelf hemp, but it'll go to an extractor. And then when they yank that stuff out, that trace amount of THC will go over that line. And it'll be when you make goo, or crude as they call it. And so there's a lawsuit on file to try to walk back the DEA's IFR that says if you do that, that's marijuana. And so if you go over it and it's hot, for example, like that, because the 2018 Farm Bill is not in effect yet, you can still do the 2014 Farm Bill. And so then there's some remediators that might come out and make sure that it's remediated. And then you test the oil, and then the oil's compliant. You can sell that.
Again, it still should be like on a ratio basis or something, not this 0.3 Delta.
It shouldn't be scheduled at all.
Yeah,
be scheduled at all. There's that. Yeah.
I mean, there's that. Hey, and speaking of justice, I don't know. So marijuana revenue might be stripped in Seattle's area sheriff budgets. I'm kind of excited about that one. Like the taxes from the cannabis here in Washington, it gets dispersed, to budgets, and so they might pull it from the sheriff department's budget. That happened in Portland too.
Well, is that what happens in these anarchist states?
Oh, it's crazy out here, dude.
Did you hear that the Department of Justice labeled them anarchist states, which is a thing that doesn't exist, but it's very, very dramatic sounding and conflict invoking. Like they're trying to make you upset about this term. Yeah.
Well, it's just like Florida can't get more Florida when they say we're going to defund the cities that defund the police. So we're just going to take more money away from you. It just makes no sense. If you're going to be for the people, there's structured and ways to do things. And it's not about getting rid of police, right? Like I like nice things. I want my nice things protected. I want myself. Right. If I die, I hope someone goes out and finds that murderer. But there's other things that can be helped to reduce the toxicity that we have in our cities.
Police are not the whole for example, engendering that conflict and stirring that pot, and then using money to act as a reward system for getting your rights. It's like, oh no, you're doing that and we don't like it, so we're just not going to fund it. Can you start not funding the DEA from enforcing the marijuana laws then? How about that? I mean, can we all agree on that? Because that was the other thing that happened before Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed. The bad news that happened last week was that they weren't going to vote on the MORE Act.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate, and I believe that's a Democrat move, right?
Yeah, that was the Democrat, because that was just going to be in the House. That was going to be a nothing move. But then I guess it was kind of prescient that it happened in the sense that then Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, and you're like, well, I guess it wouldn't have been right to try to vote for weed then. But still, what do you think about all those senators that just literally said the opposite thing 4 years ago?
This is why we can't have nice things, dude.
This is why we can't have nice things. Because sometimes you're the only one who cares about the rules.
And along those lines, because you remember how I had that 10-year Facebook account?
Yeah.
That was my strong activist. I was friends with Dennis Perone and all these other people. Well, a friend of the blog or pod, Sarah Frank. You remember Sarah?
No, I don't recall.
She's a big time fighting for children's rights in Ohio,
Okay.
and Ohio Hamfest. But the point here is her account got deleted after 10 years, and now she's trying to build up. She is a thorn in CPS's ass. That's the only reason why I'm trying to promote her and share her profile so people can follow her and like her, because I thought we had her on at one time. I guess not. We're gonna have to have her on.
Like the name sounded familiar. I think we've done
Moms for Marijuana.
Moms for Marijuana. Yep, that was one of the. We do a lot of these shows. We do.
There's a lot of people in cannabis, right? Not just the ones who are activists, but the auxiliary.
Oh, there's over 6,000 cannabis brands, and then everybody's got a new cannabis brand, and then so many people want to get into cannabis. And one of the things that we're going to talk about it on our show later when we have on the security people. They want to know how much it costs to get in, and they have this altered perception of how easy it can be to get in as well. And so they don't know that like it could be really, really difficult to try to come by a cannabis touching license, and how you can then, and then how cannabis is kind of like healthcare, which is weird. You have like license holder LLCs, and then you have all these related entity LLCs that have contracts amongst everybody. And so it becomes more like a healthcare operations. And so like it's fairly high corporate stuff because of the restrictive licensing that's there. And then that can also push up the cost. And they don't get it. They just don't want, they don't really understand why it's not like just if you wanted to open up a donut shop, any other business.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to when you're just a young person chilling in your couch and you're like, if I could grow this, I can make so much money.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I got to figure out how to establish the brick and mortar, the loan, the licensing. It's not just growing a seed for the market.
No, and that's some of the stuff. And so they'll wonder why I say it's going to be so expensive for doing like a craft grow in Illinois. And I'm like, well, the security aspect and also the scope of it alone. I mean, so how much square footage are you talking about? Well, 5,000 at the low end. Well, that's kind of a lot, and that can push the price of it up as well.
And
crazy. Oh, no.
I was gonna say just to, because our guests are from Pennsylvania. So if Pennsylvania grow, if they get that law enforced where the craft grow it'll pretty much eliminate a black market, in my opinion, I think.
The micro grower, the 150 plant. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what they think about the 150 plant. No, they don't call it craft. They call it a micro grower license. So like, there would be all different levels of security from the micro grower all the way to the master cultivator or something.
I imagine it's the difference of laser beams and guard dogs. I got nothing.
We'll find out. Not too much is going on in the world of cannabis news. What about in the anarchist capital of Seattle?
Oh, dude, it's fucking havoc over here.
Oh, havoc, is it? Was it as bad as the presidential debate?
It was so much mayhem.
Hang on, let me keep interrupting on that. That was just the debate last night. I mean, it was a dumpster fire and a shit show. But I think that was the first time that, and I'm not sure if Joe Biden's into weed, but he sure used the word man a lot. He was like, shut up, man. Or like, nice to see you, man.
Well, I mean,
like,
you can talk
like Grandpa's talking like he smokes, but then he doesn't. It's weird.
It's funny as shit, but yeah, it was sad, dude.
Yeah, it was sad. You know what they didn't talk about in that debate?
Legalization, period.
Cannabis. They didn't talk about it at all. So it sucked.
Which is kind of ironic, right? Like every time I'm always pounding the pavement when it comes to social justice equals legalization. But no one talks about it. Why? And then they didn't really talk about social justice that much. They just kind of bickered, and like one of them just kept interrupting him. Like the President Trump is like the least presidential person that I've ever seen in a presidential debate. And I've been watching him all my life, and so it was something else. But that issue isn't the only issue in the upcoming election. There's also these 4 states that are voting to legalize. So we're talking about Mississippi's got medical. South Dakota's got both medical and also adult use. Arizona, Montana, and New Jersey all have adult use. Montana actually has a very vibrant medical law that's out there, but
there's only like 500,000 people in Montana, and then there's about 800,000 in South Dakota. The Medical Mississippi Act, I wonder how medical is different than adult use, but Prop 207. That's what they got in Arizona. And the poll says Arizona voters indifferent on Prop 207 for, legalizing it, which is kind of annoying. I mean, maybe it's not going to win. Maybe it will win. Maybe it'll squeak by with this 51-48 margin.
Well, that's what failed them last time, though. They just barely missed that last time.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll be able to get Prop 207. So if you're watching this from Arizona, vote yes on Prop 207.
Well, I think, too, a lot of these medical states, you would think the medical people would try to have more stake in the recreational game. Here in Washington, I noticed a lot of people not even trying to be involved in whatever regulation that needs to be. Not even trying to put an input. They were happy to be in their little space and just make their own money.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. Like, why? I mean, why won't they be involved? I'm like, well, you see, once you got yours, you just, things get better for you. It's like, all this. What about the 40,000 people sitting behind bars for pot? Boat payments.
Right? Yeah. No, I'm not stirring the pot. I'm not getting. They're not looking at me, rather, or whatever. You're not standing out.
Yeah, but you can still cut checks. You could still make donations.
But even overall, it's like I just don't get people like that, especially in cannabis. You're in an outlaw industry from the get, and you have people suffering worse than you as you're paying off your car payment. Sending your kids to school or going on vacations. There's more people need to step up, I think.
Yeah.
But anyways.
They do. And that's one of the things, because I was kind of poo-pooing the medical, like in Mississippi. When medical comes in, it's usually like the big mothership it's not usually Oklahoma where it's everybody and their brother can get in. It's more along the lines of a very few amount of licenses, just a handful. And then the biggest players come in. So they come out with a monopoly or an oligopoly, basically, from the get-go with your medical. And so then you're like, wait a second. Why are you going to upset this? We have a good thing going. Maybe if you open it up more, that's fine. But how do we maintain our share? I mean, our domination. Like all businesses, they just love to grow.
Yeah. I get that. It's just it's so frustrating. Like in California, where it was medical, and then now you have this whatever regional recreational, right?
Well, it's legal in California, but then it's also legal for the communities to say not in our backyard. It's like the dry counties. And so I don't think that you could ban being drunk, right? And so, but you could ban like buying the alcohol or having bars or selling the alcohol. And then if you did that, then magically nobody would drink. It's that whole thing of zero tolerance, complete abstinence, where it's just a binary switch of morality, and just it's a fantasy. I don't understand though, but a lot of people subscribe to that fantasy where it's just we can't have it at all.
But this is ridiculous at this point. After Prop 215, as I like to call it, the gateway proposition, through recreational. Yeah, I mean that's what it is, right? I mean, we had medical. People realized that everybody didn't collapse, and California didn't collapse, didn't fall off the map.
Every state that has legalized cannabis has not fallen off the map. Literally every state. Do you think Amsterdam is just falling into just a terrible depravity because you've been able to go to Amsterdam to legally buy weed and smoke it for decades? No, it's fine. Yeah.
No, every place. And again, we're legalizing morality. That's what you're talking about, right?
Right. You're legislating immorality. And that was an aspect that I did not know about Ed Rosenthal. And if you're just joining us, don't forget to hit the likes and subscribes. And then check out our show that we did last Sunday with Ed Rosenthal. And he mentioned the last time he bought weed. That was an interesting anecdote.
The guy was full of all kinds of cool stories, though, man. Like,
yeah.
The hippie thing, the culture. He was.
Did he call it a hippie or did he call it a yuppie or
yippie? He was a yippie.
Yeah.
the fact that he referenced terpenes and not like indica sativa, that just goes to show you he's a little hit.
Well, and the terpenes that he was nerd alert when it comes to cannabis, because the terpenes he was referencing are the more stimulating of the terpenes. He was not referencing myrcene or lianolol, and that was the other thing that I mentioned. How do you pronounce all the terpenes anyway?
Yeah, I just kind of mumble it and hope people get it.
We need to get somebody who's musically inclined to write us a jingle that they sing all the terpenes for us so that we understand how to pronounce them.
I try so hard, dude, but like the only ones I even remember are like limonol because it has like a lime in the word.
And
then the lavender one. Well,
linenol, but I just totally butchered that one. And then there was Niradol. Oh, potential spam's calling, and so I hung up on that one. But Nirodol. See, these are just so much fun to try to remember how to pronounce terpenes. Beta caryophyllene. I think I got that one. Yeah,
nice.
Man. All right. So what other news was there? You share a story with the audience.
Jersey's going to try.
Jersey's trying.
The governor is going to, go back.
GOTV, get out the vote in Jersey.
Yeah. So, the go-to marijuana moment, Tom Angel and his crew, always on point. And Jersey. And then also our friends in Pennsylvania are trying again, still hard.
Pennsylvania's got a ballot thing that they're going to have to do, and then they're going to have to vote legislators out at the ballot. Like they aren't able to do the easy one. I guess we can call it easy, like the actual ballot initiative, like Seattle. You guys were able to put it on the ballot and vote it out in Washington. Basically the whole West Coast, Colorado, Arizona. Where is it? It's on the ballot. And so Jersey was on the ballot. Missouri was on the ballot. South Dakota's on the ballot. Legislative states like Pennsylvania, you can't do it. And so that's one of the reasons why they have to go to the ballot and they have to ask all their candidates, like, hey, do you support legalizing it, especially with SB 350? That was going to be a fairly open market. It would be the most open Midwest market outside of Michigan.
It's just a great way to the whole black market or eliminate the traditional market everybody's afraid of. Though, if you evolve the community.
It's what you do. You have the micro grower license, and then that helps put out the black market because then everybody can get in.
And again, I don't like calling black markets. It's just citizens, right? It's just,
illicit. But I guess we should call it the illicit market or something, because it's criminalized and it's illegal. But I don't like the way that it's criminalized and punished. I think it should be more like.
I wonder if our grower guests have an opinion on that.
I bet we have a wonderful guest that can talk about the entire supply chain and the cannabis industry, probably even in California, right?